January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. The disease claims the lives of hundreds of thousands of women each year around the world. And every hour, a woman in the United States is diagnosed with cervical cancer, and every 2 hours, somebody dies of cervical cancer. But listen to these worldwide statistics. Roughly 500,000 new cases are diagnosed each year, and some 300,000 women around the world die from cervical cancer every year. Dr. Sharad Gamandi is working tirelessly to lower the death rate from the disease. He is the Obstetrics and Gynecology Department Chair at the Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University. And we also want to welcome this lovely lady in red, Mary Eva Neely, who is a cervical cancer patient. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me here.
You know, Dr. Gamandi, before we talk about cervical cancer, I do want to mention that you are the founder of a support group, a women battling different gynecologic cancers support group. You feel like it's important when a woman is diagnosed to have someone who knows what she's going through?
Absolutely. So we have the CSRA-GYN Cancer Support Group, which we have founded almost over 14 years ago. It's just not me, but a bunch of patients and healthcare providers and nurses who are a big part of it. And you know, to have cancer is scary. And as physicians or healthcare providers, we can talk about the treatments, the diagnosis, the stuff which we can do, but it's an entirely different ballgame when you actually sit down with somebody who's walked in your shoes, who can be your mentor and guide you through that process. And that alleviates a lot of the fear which is associated with cancer. It's probably one of the most important things that we do apart from our standard care.
You know, it amazes me how so many times when people do go through a traumatic event like cancer, they do want to help others. And Mary, I was saying to you earlier, you're doing that right now. You're willing to talk about your cancer to help others. Dr. Gamandi says that you're kind of like the miracle patient with what's happened with you in cervical cancer.
Yes, thank God for that, because when I found out I had cancer, I was devastated. It was awesome. I can't explain the feeling that I had, and I would like to help others that had that same feeling.
And Dr. Gamandi, Mary's part of a clinical trial?
She is. Actually, she's a part of multiple clinical trials. The very first time in early 2000s when she was diagnosed with cervical cancer, she was a part of a NCI clinical trial using a radiation sensitizer for standard therapy with radiation and chemo. She participated in that, did really well for many years, and then has come back with recurrent disease. Since then, I think I'm going to step back a little. Cervical cancer, when it recurs, is a really bad disease, and that's why prevention is way better than trying to chase recurrent disease or cervical cancer. So she has been through multiple lines of therapy, standard chemotherapy, clinical trials. In fact, GOG 240 was a national clinical trial which we used a biological agent, Avastin, which is a drug which prevents tumors from getting blood supply to feed them. And she was a part of that trial, which actually led to FDA approval for Avastin, which was the first drug in decades for cervical cancer, which was FDA approved or developed. And since then, she's been on a variety of clinical trials with immunotherapy, and now is in a part of a really interesting, fairly involved clinical trial, which includes taking a part of a tumor, harvesting what I call as tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, getting them augmented outside, and they are targeting her HPV related cancer. Then she gets admitted to a bone marrow transplant unit where we take her natural cells off with high-dose chemotherapy and then reintroduce her own cells now, which are programmed to attack her cancer.
That is amazing. That is so cutting edge.
It is. It also takes a lot of courage and belief on the patient of a patient to go through that, because it's very involved compared to standard chemotherapy.
Where do you get your support?
I get my support from my doctor and my pastor and my family, and God above all. Everything is possible with God, you know. There was one time that he put me to a test, excuse me, and I had to really prove that I loved him as much as I was saying that I loved him. And I had to put my doctor to the test, believe in him and let God direct and guide him into all truth and understanding in his healing field. Let him do his will. And I was obedient to God's word, and I was obedient to my doctor. And I just thank God, and I thank my doctor for allowing God to use his hand, give him the wisdom and knowledge to control cancer.
Right, right. Well, thank you for doing your part and for being a part of that study. And I know, Dr. Gamandi, what you're saying too is from the time she was first diagnosed until now, this is a different ball game. Treatments, I mean, so many times there are surgeries now, cancers that don't necessarily have surgery or radiation.
Absolutely. And again, the concept is we may not be able to cure everybody, but you can live with cancer. We can keep it in check, hopefully without making you sick too. And you can live with a very long time and kind of make it like a chronic disease.
A chronic disease.
And Mary is a living example of that.
I feel great.
She's done it so graciously.
I feel great, and I thank God for you.
It takes an army to do this, and I have an incredible support staff of clinical nurses, research nurses, even our secretaries, my partners in crime who are part of the GYN oncology section. And everybody works tirelessly to try to make a difference in this community.
And before we go, you are wearing the teal ribbon
for I am.
Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. What do women need to know? Is it yearly pap smear, or what is it that women need to know?
It's changed a little bit. The first fundamental thing is cervical cancer is preventable. In this day and age, we know why people get cervical cancer is because of a high-risk HPV strain, which under the right circumstances will cause progression from pre-cancer to cancer. A pap smear can be life-saving. We don't do it every year the way we used to many years ago. The current recommendations from the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology are to do pap smears every 3 years from age 21 till 29. And if they are negative, then either you can continue to do pap smears every 3 years, or now with the HPV testing, a probe testing, you can co-test a pap and a probe every 5 years. But you still have to look at your body, listen to your body, and that's one thing. Secondly, it's unbelievable that we have vaccines now which can prevent cancer. The latest out in the market is Gardasil 9, which covers about 90% of all the HPV strains. It is, for all the vaccines that we take, starting from childhood, the most effective and the safest vaccine ever developed. And if everybody does it, I mean, there's a good chance that the worldwide incidence of cervical cancer will dramatically decrease for what right now is a killer.
At boys and girls. I love the commercials now. The commercials are really targeted at and at parents. You know, when they go back in time and it's the little kids saying, "Mom, Dad, did you know? Did you know there was a vaccine?" So, thank you for sharing that information, life-saving information with us today, Mary Neely and Dr. Sherrod Gamandi. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.